On May 30th, 2025, something extraordinary happened in West Africa, something no one saw coming. General Abdourahmane Tiani, the usually silent and guarded president of Niger, broke his silence, and when he finally spoke, it wasn't with a whisper, it was with thunder. In a rare, nearly 4-hour live interview on national television, Tiani didn't just speak, he dropped political dynamite. Calm in tone but sharp in substance, he laid out a series of claims that, if true, could shake the foundation of international diplomacy and expose a shadow war raging in the heart of Africa. He didn't name fringe players. No, Tiani went straight to the top. The United States, France, China, even Niger's African neighbors. According to him, these powers aren't just interfering, they're conspiring. But one claim in particular has turned heads around the world and dropped jaws. Tiani accused the Chinese ambassador of offering $10 million, not in aid, not for development, but to terrorist groups operating in the Sahel. Let that sink in. $10 million, allegedly handed to insurgents, not to build peace, but to spread chaos. So, the obvious question, why? Is this about buying influence, destabilizing the region to gain leverage? Or is it something even darker, a geopolitical chess match where terror is just another piece on the board? These aren't whispers from conspiracy theorists, these are public statements from the man running Niger. The man with access to intelligence, security briefings, and the inner workings of his government. And if he's telling the truth, this isn't just a regional conflict anymore. It's a global power struggle, one being played out behind closed doors, using Africa as the battlefield. In this video, we're going to break down exactly what Tiani said, examine the bigger picture, and ask the questions the rest of the world seems too afraid to voice. Who's really funding the chaos in the Sahel? What do global superpowers stand to gain? And why is this all coming to a head now? Let's rewind for a moment. To understand where this all started, we need to go back to 2008, when China first entered the scene in Niger. Beijing came under the banner of partnership and progress. Through its state-owned oil giant PetroChina, it secured rights to develop the Agadem oil field, a treasure trove of roughly 650 million barrels of crude. As part of the deal, China built a major refinery in Zinder, 460 kilometers away, locking in a 60% controlling stake in the project. On paper, it looked like mutual development, but now, according to Tiani, that deal may have had a darker underside. He claims that while China publicly pushed for growth, behind the scenes, it was cutting deals with the very groups tearing Niger apart. And here's where it gets even more explosive. Tiani believes this is part of a broader effort to crush the AES Confederation, a rising alliance between Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, aimed at asserting regional independence from foreign influence. So now the question isn't just about oil or trade, it's about sovereignty, survival, and the future of an entire region. Is the Sahel becoming the new front line in a global shadow war? Stay with us because what you're about to hear could rewrite everything you thought you knew about Africa, foreign policy, and the hidden forces driving conflict in the modern world. Back in 2011, Niger officially joined the ranks of oil-producing nations. On the surface, it was a moment of national pride, a chance to tap into its vast resources and take control of its economic future. But behind the headlines, something else was happening. Powerful interests were already moving pieces into place. Fast forward to 2019. China announced a bold new project, a massive 2,000-kilometer pipeline stretching from the Agadem oil fields in Niger to the Beninese port of Kaji. The goal? To pump out over 110,000 barrels of oil every single day and put Niger on the map as a serious energy player in West Africa. Sounds like progress, right? Not so fast. As of today, the pipeline is still under construction, and now it's tangled in controversy, corruption, and an international scandal that's hard to believe. With shocking allegations surfacing against the Chinese ambassador, including claims of secretly offering $10 million to terrorist groups in the region, the entire oil project now looks less like development and more like a Trojan horse. Was the pipeline just a cover? A way for China to embed itself deep into Niger's economy while quietly backing the very forces destabilizing it? According to Niger's president, General Abdourahmane Tiani, That's exactly what happened. And what he revealed in a recent interview could change how the world views China's role in Africa forever. Here's what went down. The pipeline project was already facing major setbacks. Tensions between Niger and neighboring Benin slowed progress. But the real danger came from within. Terrorist groups had begun attacking the pipeline itself, blowing up completed sections and crippling construction efforts. Niger's dream of becoming an energy hub was slipping away. And that's when, reportedly, China panicked. With billions of dollars on the line, executives at PetroChina, along with the Chinese ambassador, allegedly hatched a secret plan. They'd pay off the terrorists, $10 million under the table, in exchange for leaving the pipeline alone. Let that sink in. A foreign power offering millions to arm militants, not to fight terrorism, but to negotiate with it. Worse still, this deal was supposed to happen behind Niger's back. The plan was to move the money through Paris, funneled discreetly through a woman named Dr. Mina. She would act as the go-between, connecting Chinese officials to a fugitive Nigerian, Mahmoudou Saleh, who would deliver the cash directly to the terrorists. Everything was set, but then, by what General Tiani called sheer luck, Nigerian security forces caught wind of the plot. They tracked Saleh's movements, found out where he'd gotten his passports, and discovered he was heading to Nigeria, possibly Abuja or Sokoto, to pick up the funds and hand them over. Middlemen, of course, would take their cut along the way. But here's where the story takes a turn. Nigerian authorities found out, and they didn't sit quietly. Behind closed doors, they summoned the Chinese ambassador and laid it all out. They knew what was happening, and they issued a clear, stern warning. If this plot wasn't shut down immediately, the entire China-Niger partnership would be on the line. No threats, just facts. End the deal or watch everything collapse. The message hit home. The ambassador backed off. The payment was stopped. The pipeline deal was salvaged, technically, but the trust? Gone. This wasn't just a brush with scandal. It exposed something much bigger and far more dangerous. It forced a reckoning. Even the so-called partners like China and Russia aren't here out of goodwill. They're here for profit, leverage, and control. And if that means striking shady deals with the same extremists who kill civilians and destabilize nations, so be it. Let's be brutally honest. Why would any country, let alone one claiming to help build Africa's future, even consider paying terrorists? Was it just about oil, about keeping barrels flowing and profits safe? Did they stop to think what kind of precedent that sets? Because here's the truth. Terrorists don't just take a bribe and disappear. They take it and demand more. If this plan had gone through, the implications would have been catastrophic. The terrorists might have stopped attacking the pipeline for a while, but they wouldn't have stopped. They would have grown stronger, bolder, more dangerous. And the message would have been clear. If you want to win, don't negotiate with governments. Cut deals with the foreigners. So now we have to ask, if China was willing to go this far, who else is doing the same? How deep does this web of backroom deals and betrayal go? Because what General Tiani has revealed isn't just one scandal, it's a warning. Let's say that $10 million deal had gone through. Sure, the terrorists might have stopped blowing up oil pipelines in Niger for now, but they wouldn't just vanish, they'd simply shift focus. They'd take their weapons and bombs across the border into Nigeria. And who would pay the price? Not the oil execs, not the ambassadors, not the politicians behind closed doors. The victims would be everyday people, innocent men, women, and children, caught in the crossfire of a secret deal made in the shadows to protect barrels of crude. And at that moment, something becomes painfully, undeniably clear. No foreign power, not China, not Russia, not even the West, is in Africa out of friendship. They all play by the same rule, self-interest first. Here's the bitter truth. If global superpowers can be so unapologetically loyal to their own interests, why can't African leaders do the same? For far too long, we've seen a heartbreaking pattern. Leaders across the continent acting as gatekeepers for foreign agendas, selling out their people in exchange for private rewards. Their nations suffer in silence while they cash in behind the scenes. It's not just frustrating, it's soul-crushing. But something is changing. In the heart of the Sahel, a new kind of leadership is rising. It's bold, unfiltered, and fiercely loyal to the land. Leaders like General Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger, Captain Ibrahim Traoré in Burkina Faso, Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali. They're not perfect, but they're different. For them, sovereignty isn't just a slogan, it's a line in the sand. And here's what they're saying loud and clear. Any partnership, East or West, must be fair. It must be mutual, or it's over. Even China and Russia don't get a free pass. The day any so-called ally starts acting like the old colonial powers, these leaders are ready to walk away. No second thoughts. Because for the first time in a long time, Africa is choosing itself. Now, take Niger, for example. After the military took power and ousted the old government, the West came down hard. Sanctions, condemnations, diplomatic isolation. France and the US wasted no time. China extended a quiet hand, and according to one former Nigerian minister, it was Beijing's silent but steady support that gave General Tiani the strength to stand tall against global pressure. China's policy of non-interference made it more than just a partner, it became a strategic ally. Niger billions flowed into Niger's oil sector. In April 2024, state TV in Niger proudly broadcast a new $400 million deal with China's state oil company, CNPC. The plan? To market Niger's crude globally and move forward without the West. For a moment, it looked like the beginning of an unbreakable alliance. But then, just months later, everything changed. Without warning, General Tiani expelled 3 Chinese officials from Niger. No press conference, no sugarcoating, just one message: get out. He knew what that meant. China could retaliate, investments could dry up, projects could stall. But he didn't blink, because to him, Niger's sovereignty is not for sale. This wasn't posturing, it wasn't political theater, it was a principle. Tiani made it clear, no matter how friendly a country claims to be, if they try to manipulate Niger, if they dare to exploit its people or resources, they're out. No exceptions. That moment drew a bold new red line in African politics. From now on, real partnership must come with one thing above all else: respect. At first glance, the China-Niger relationship looked strong. Growing deals, deep investments, public praise. But underneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. One of quiet manipulation, shadow games, and shifting loyalties. And now a new chapter is being written, one where African nations stand their ground, set their terms, and reclaim the power they've been denied for far too long. Because in the Sahel, the age of silent surrender is over. On the surface, it looked like a solid alliance. China and Niger shoulder to shoulder, building a future beyond the grip of the West. When other nations turned their backs, Beijing stepped in. The oil was flowing, the deals were inked, and the handshake photos made headlines. But then, everything changed. Just months after signing a massive energy deal with China, Niger's leader, General Abdourahmane Tiani, did the unthinkable. No warning, no press release, no polite back-channeling. He kicked 3 Chinese officials out of the country. Just like that. It was a move that stunned observers around the world. China wasn't just a business partner. It had billions invested in Niger's energy infrastructure. Booting their diplomats risked blowing up years of political groundwork and massive economic projects. But General Tiani didn't blink, because for him, Niger comes first, no matter the cost. You have to understand the deeper story here. For years, China quietly tightened its grip on Niger's oil sector. Through PetroChina and its 60% stake in the Saraz refinery, Beijing didn't just invest, it dominated. Production, distribution, even the global marketing of Niger's crude, all roads led back to China. It looked like partnership on paper. In reality, it was control. But then came March 2024, the moment that changed everything. General Tiani didn't just push back, he redrew the rules. He made it clear. Niger would no longer play the role of silent, junior partner while foreign companies made all the decisions. No more managing Niger's resources from boardrooms in Beijing. No more one-sided cooperation. The country was taking back its power. And this wasn't symbolic. It was sharp. It was strategic. Tiani was sending a message not just to China, but to every foreign power watching. Africa is done asking for permission. Then came the boldest move yet. In a sweeping declaration of economic independence, General Tiani signed two landmark decrees that would rewrite Niger's energy playbook forever. With the stroke of a pen, Niger's military government reclaimed full control of its most valuable oil zones, the Bilma Block and the Agadem Block fields, rich with crude and long dominated by PetroChina. How valuable are they? The Agadem oil field alone holds an estimated 650 million barrels. For years, PetroChina had a 60% grip on it. That grip? Now broken. From here on out, Niger's state oil company, Sonadep, would lead the way. Not assist. Not observe. Lead. Exploration. Development. Production. All of it. Under Niger's control. This wasn't some bureaucratic reshuffle. It was a revolution in motion. For the first time in modern history, Niger was no longer just the oil-rich backdrop for someone else's empire. It had stepped forward as the main actor in its own story. And China? No longer calling the shots. Foreign companies used to call the shots, setting the pace, naming their price, but that chapter? It's closing fast. Under General Tiani, Niger isn't just sitting at the table anymore. It's flipping it. The message is simple. Niger is reclaiming its resources, and with them, its power. But this isn't a tantrum. Tiani isn't slamming doors or burning bridges. We have no problem with China, but from now on, the rules have changed. You'll play by ours. In this new era, foreign expertise isn't off the table, but it's on Niger's terms. Whether it's drilling, refining, or production, outside help is welcome only when it serves the people of Niger. No more blank checks, no more open invitations. Partnership is now a privilege, not a given. And perhaps this is the real revolution. Africa, long treated like a market to be bought or a resource to be mined, is finally choosing itself. Tiani made his stance unmistakable. Foreign expertise isn't a lifeline, it's a service. And services can be bought, replaced, or walked away from. Niger is operating at a new level, now a level where the country comes first. Foreign deals, optional, strategic, conditional. He said it himself. We're not against these partners. They've helped us before, and we may work with them again. But only if it aligns with our people's interests. Only if it respects our sovereignty. That was the spirit behind Niger's 2024 oil sector reforms. The understanding with Chinese companies was crystal clear. Local talent must be prioritized. That meant hiring Nigerians, not flying in engineers and subcontractors from halfway across the world. Local goods, local services, local labor. That was the law. That was the deal. Then came the betrayal. When the government launched a review of the oil sector, what they found was a quiet disregard for the agreement. Chinese companies were ignoring the rules, bypassing local professionals, and flooding operations with their own workers from Beijing. It wasn't just business as usual, it was a direct insult to Niger's dignity. Ibrahim Hamidou, spokesperson for Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zeina, didn't mince words. The companies failed to comply with the amended mining code. It was never complicated, just use local subcontractors when possible, and they shouldn't all be Chinese. Simple, reasonable, but ignored. For the military leadership, it wasn't just disrespect, it was a slap in the face. The takeaway was crystal clear. China needed to learn. Niger is not a country to be undermined. Tiani's government stood tall. No shady deals, no backroom negotiations, and absolutely no bribing terrorists. The policy is zero tolerance. The mission? Eliminate threats, not buy them off. And to China's credit, they got the message. Instead of reacting with fury like the West often does when its interests in Africa are challenged, Beijing kept its cool. No threats, no ultimatums, no sanctions. When Tiani signed the March 2024 decree to take back Niger's key oil blocks, China didn't retaliate. They responded with something unexpected: diplomacy. Just a few weeks later, on April 8, 2024, a high-level Chinese delegation landed in Niamey. Led by Ambassador Zhang Fang, they sat down directly with the military leadership, including Tiani himself. Not to argue, not to demand, to listen, to understand. They came to make sure that, despite the shift in power and the change in tone, the partnership could still stand on Niger's terms this time. And that, right there, marked a turning point not just for Niger but for Africa's place in the world. Because the age of quiet submission is over. What's rising in its place is a new voice, steady, proud, and unafraid to say, "We are not for sale. We are in charge." China could have thrown its weight around. It had the money, the leverage, the decades of investment in Niger's oil. But instead of flexing, China chose something different, something that caught the world off guard: respect, patience, and diplomacy. After General Tiani's bold shakeup in Niger's oil sector, reclaiming control, kicking out foreign influence, and drawing a hard line on sovereignty, many expected a storm from Beijing. But that storm never came. Instead, China quietly reaffirmed its commitment to work with Niger, not through pressure, not through threats, but through partnership. Because this new Africa, it's not looking for masters, it's looking for mutual respect. And in this moment, China seemed to understand that better than anyone else. Niger's mission is clear: full independence, full control, and a future defined by its own people. No more puppet strings, no more middlemen. After a series of private talks between Chinese diplomats and Niger's military leaders, the spotlight fell on China's ambassador, Zhang Fang. He stood before the press and delivered a message that said everything without saying too much. China, he said, was satisfied with the rational friendship and the fruitful cooperation between the two nations. No excuses, no finger-pointing, no drama. He acknowledged something that Western powers often refuse to: Niger's right to choose its path. He understood that General Tiani's decision to reclaim the country's oil wasn't a provocation, it was principle. Sovereignty wasn't just a buzzword, it was the foundation of everything Niger stood for. Zhang didn't backpedal, he didn't try to save face. Instead, he reminded the world of what China had already done: the Saraz refinery, the massive pipeline stretching over 1,200 miles, and the billions already invested. And then, the mic drop moment: China remains committed to working with Niger in the spirit of mutual respect and cooperation. That kind of reaction, unheard of, especially in Africa, where for decades these situations often end in threats, ultimatums, or even economic warfare. But not this time. Behind closed doors, something remarkable happened. A new agreement was struck. Despite the shakeup, Niger agreed to let China continue as the international exporter of its oil. Not because it was forced to, but because it chose to. No strong-arming, no backdoor deals. Just clear-eyed negotiation rooted in respect. Now ask yourself, if this had been the US or France in China's place, would the outcome have been the same? Let's be real, probably not. Western powers have a track record in Africa, and it's not pretty. They don't take kindly to being challenged. Sanctions, condemnations, regime change whispers, that's usually the playbook when African nations decide to stand up. But that's exactly why China is starting to look like the partner of choice for many African countries. It's not just the roads or pipelines or factories. It's the way China moves. Where the West demands, China negotiates. Where the West interferes, China steps back. And in a continent long battered by foreign exploitation, that difference matters. This moment between Niger and China wasn't just a footnote, it was a signpost. Africa is rewriting the rules, and the world is learning. You don't get to lead here anymore just because you're powerful. You lead because you listen. And for nations like Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, that difference isn't just symbolic. It could shape the future of an entire continent. So when critics claim that the AES countries are simply swapping one colonizer for another by working with China or Russia, here's the truth. They're not trading away their sovereignty, they're defending it. The new generation of African leadership isn't playing checkers, they're playing chess. Even US senators have had to admit it. These leaders are sharp, strategic, and unshakably bold. And make no mistake, if Russia ever crosses the line, they'll call it out just as fast as they've challenged the West. Because here's what they understand better than most. Africa has never been weak, only misled. It doesn't need to ask for respect. It just needs to stop relying on those who take advantage of it. The moment African leaders truly realize their own power, that's the moment the continent stops being a resource and starts being a force. So now, I want to hear from you. What's your take? Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe if you're ready to see a new Africa rise, one that's bold, independent, and writing its own future. Make no mistake, the story is being written right now.